Come on, give me a little, boom. There we go. All right, everyone, welcome to the second installment of the Sport Kite Chat Roundtable. This morning, we kind of had a discussion that was centered around the theme of progression and where we're going with that, how you define progression, and like how we can kind of help each other in progression. So tonight's chat is about elements and kind of discussing critical elements of design, whether that be elements of designing a kite or elements of designing a routine, so choreography and understanding music and stuff like that. We have a pretty good group of folks that are online tonight, and I would like to open it up as a round table for anyone to kind of throw something out there and get us started. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? That would start probably best. A question about design elements or choreography elements. And just as a reminder, your mic is probably muted, so you'll have to unmute it in order for all of us to hear. This is always that awkward moment for me where I'm waiting for someone to say something, and I know everyone's trying not to talk over one another as well. So I guess I'll put this question out there. For the designers in the group, the folks that have designed sport kites, what is an element of one of your designs that you're the most proud of? Be it a bridle, be it a trick, be it stitching, be it understanding little things like depth or shallowness of your sail, something like that. So I will open the floor to the sport kite designers and ask you guys.
I'll bite. I don't know if how much I would call myself a sport kite designer, but at least on quad line side, I have a new thing that I've been playing with a lot lately. My printer, and so I had a new thing that I built recently, and I haven't really had a lot of time to play with it yet. But for my indoor quadline kite called the Breeze, I do tensioning on that a little different. I don't have any bungees, no bungees, so I have like a loop sewn into the sail and then tension it kind of like you would at the end of a dual line kite with some line and then a knock. But one thing that I used to do on my indoor quadline kites is put some little vinyl or something on the bottom to keep the kite from sliding out. When you're on like a hardwood floor, you know, just the straight plastic will slide all over the place. It's hard to just be able to stand there with the kite. And using knock-end caps, I couldn't really put I could put a vinyl over, but then the bridle also comes from like the sort of anchor line comes from there as well. So it kind of distorts the anchor position. And then I have to take it on and off every single time. It's not like a dual line where I can't leave the vertical rods in really and put it away. So I ended up designing my own knock-end cap that has the knock portion. It has a couple of ridges that I can put the anchor point on, and then I print a separate piece that fits on the end using a flexible material to be kind of my end piece that gives the traction. So it's kind of a dual material print that then you can fit together, and so it's my new snazzy fitting. So I'm really happy about that one. Yeah.
I guess I can bite part two. Recently, I've been kind of on this weird track of like reflecting on everything that's happened since 2011, and I think the one thing that I'm the most proud of, it's kind of a culmination of things in each kite, and the result is different. But I've always wanted to produce a kite that has a very distinct lesson within it, through the means of showing that, I mean, I'm calling it a trump card right now, but like if you're flying strategically and you know you're given this hand of cards, this kite, I almost don't want a hand where every card is the same, right? Because then you put all your eggs in one basket, or there's no distinct defining characteristic or personality within a kite. And sometimes I think it's really exciting, and you learn a lot by having a kite that either has a trump card that's really good or a really big weak point that you can turn into an asset to something else. Like I was talking to Chris Goff not too long ago about the Fury's dead spot and how you can use that dead spot as an asset to essentially create the signature comet that the Furies have. And going through the line of kites, like I think the most recent one being the spur, like the spurs, to me, its asset is to have a little bit of a spongy frame and this broad seamed sail that's designed nose back, that it's a very distinct, it provides a very distinct feel of like, you start it, you initiate the movement, change the potential energy to kinetic energy, and you get out of the way. If you so much as interject at all, that kite will stop and dump wind and just, you'll look like an idiot. But I still look like an idiot sometimes, like, but there's a distinct lesson in giving up control and letting the kite ride on what is provided, which is the wind's, the wind. And I guess the more I look back on it, the more it has been kind of, all my kites have been kind of sheltered in my own paranoia. But to see like the trump cards that I've kind of produced a little bit down the line, it's more of like a retrospective proud thing. So maybe this isn't a normal response, but I got to fly all of them today with people that I had just met today in person. And I was like, okay, maybe like I dig it. That's kind of just where my head's at right now.
Sorry, if there's extra pauses from me, it's because I keep getting join requests and I want to make sure I hit yes. I accidentally, so far today, only one person did I accidentally kick out. So apologies if that happens. Just a request to rejoin again if in pushing the buttons I accidentally kick you out. So listening to both Waddy and Devin, that kind of got me thinking, do you guys think that there are core elements that go across all sport kites? Understandably, dual line and quad line may have certain different things, but elements that have to be there that make it a quality build. Trying to think of the right words to use it, but like, you know it when you see it. When you pick up a $5 Prism knockoff from eBay versus flying a spur, they fly very differently. And is there a way we can kind of define maybe what some of those core elements are?
I'm like raising my hand. I don't know what to do to chime in. I see Ben's on the chat. I was talking to them today about these little things that really leave a lasting impression that I think go beyond your typical observation of quality. Like, I think it's a universal thing that we can all agree that like Tim Benson is just like, you pull out a kite and you crap your pants. Heck, you crap the person next to you's pants. It's so good. And like, you're just like, what, like how? And like Pam Kirk is doing this, when she was alive, and like I'm getting John McCracken sales, who's got, all this fabric behind, it's one thing to pull out a kite and, see the stitching, line up with the seam tape and make sure everything's there. And, like the nose is well tended to, like, yeah, we all know that. We all look for that stuff. But a point that I brought up today was Paul Shirley's kites. When he used like the star, for example, on his upper spreader reinforcement. Like, that's a pain in the ass to sew. Like, but to do it and to execute these things, to have this build quality that's so good that it's almost assumed, to where someone can really enjoy the small things, whether that is a tapered tailpiece that looks real slender from the T down to the tail, a reinforcement, or a star on the upper spreader, or the Widowmaker had that hourglass with the spider web in it. Like these small things that reassure that this kite is already built well, but really are like these little sprinkles on this beautiful little cupcake or whatever. That's what I look for. Like when I pull something out from these respected makers, like in Level 1 USA, you guys are putting out really great stuff too. Like, it's good. Like you can look at everything, you can check, for a couple things and go, okay, like that'll be that way over the kite. But to observe these small things that really are such a contributing part to a bigger picture, to me is like the be all to end all, if that makes any sense.
I think kind of on a similar vein, I think the first thing that came to my mind is the word cleanliness, and sort of the phrase of that good design goes unnoticed, right? It's all these things that to the untrained eye, you notice when they're not there, you notice when things are not quite right, but when things are good and clean and in the right place, then it all works smoothly and you don't feel frustrations out of things. You don't have knots that you're getting snagged up on. You don't have, all the stuff that gets in the way. The good design gets out of your way and, lets you shine. So, yeah, basic, just good design and cleanliness. That seems like the core thing to me.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that there's a thing to it too, that when you pick up, a cheap knockoff, like you're saying, Nick, or a Level 1, or especially one of Tim's kites, you can feel the difference. You know that the quality's there just by picking up. At first glance, you can tell the difference. And, I assume we're going to harp on Tim quite a bit because his quality is probably second to none. But when I first picked up one of Tim's kites and saw that he's using transparent thread on part of his spine reinforcement just so it blends in and you don't see it, it's like Devin was saying, the little things that make you realize how good some of these kites are being produced. But also just, taking it out of the bag, even the bag quality, is it coming in, cellophane, or is it, the old MLD bags, which are, pretty much Cordura, or, Tim's bags, which are a really nice pack material. You get that feeling of quality as soon as you grab the bag, essentially.
I remember a few years ago, Paul had me sew together a few Jinx sails. He did all the cutting and piecing together, and he had me sew it. And I was nervous because he pretty much demanded contrasting stitching. And I was like, I don't want my stitches to be seen because it's going to stand out. And he made a very good case for having that contrasting stitching, is that, kind of this element we're talking about here, it really, it's like Devin said, the sprinkles on the cupcake, right? It highlights that you've got a good quality kite, even though the contrasting stitching adds nothing to how it flies. Oh, thanks, Paul. Are you listening, Hunter? Oh.
Can I add one thing to that? When I see something like this, and when I'm hearing you guys talk about all of this, you can almost, I think it's all, everybody here really knows what they're doing. There's part of this, almost watching a kite in a video and going yeah, I think I could bode with that. I think we'll gel, versus maybe not for me. But there's also this other step when you, when John said, when you pull something out of the bag, having no idea what its characteristics could be, just to observe that, even if it's rolled up and say, it is Tim's transparent thread on the tail, you don't have to understand the design. You don't have to get along with it, but you can tell immediately, just based on that little sprinkle, that kite is gonna make a statement. You don't even have to unfold it. And if that's the level that is beyond my comprehension. To pull it out, or even just feel the nose and go oh yeah, Like, okay, before you even pull it out of the bag. Maybe it's just me being a nerd, but like, I don't even know how that's possible. Like, it could just be the same material, but there's something involved within the care of the whole thing. It's like almost like you can feel like the love and the intent that went into it, just based off of it being what Spence said, clean and like well taken care of. It's insane.
I'm totally going to call on Paul and Hunter because I know they designed and built a few kites. So one of you.
I mean, I'll comment to what you pointed out there, Nick. I mean, we made the conscious decision in the focus days to do our stitching in white as a way to say I'm not going to shy away from trying to hide any imperfections. I'm going to put it out there the way it is, and we're going to do the best that we could with it. And yeah, from the sewing perspective, it was puts a little bit more stress on you, but we did what we could with it. I'm not by any means saying that we did the best out there or anything like that, but that was a conscious decision that we made that said that we're not going to hide it. We're putting it front and center.
I apologize to you, Hunter, and Nick, for that matter. Y'all did great, I think, with that, and I do believe that that's a statement of quality, and it is just, well, Spence and Devin already touched upon that. It is a statement of quality, basically. The way I took the original question, how do you define, or how do you see something that's quality rather than just another $10 kite? It's not. I'm not necessarily, oddly enough, looking at those little details. For me, it is, does the kite fly better than crap? Does it? You'll know how it is. Those non-designed, cookie-cutter, computer-generated, copied kites just don't fly well. Regardless of attention to detail, regardless of contrasting stitching, regardless of stitched bridles opposed to knotted bridles, the cookie cutter ones, the generic ones, just don't fly right. And you don't want to give them to a beginner or an intermediate flyer because you know they're not going to have a satisfactory time with it. That is, to me, where design comes in. I love, as much as any of the people here, slick finishings and cool materials, but the first and foremost criterion is still, does it fly well, regardless of rough edges?
And I think part of that goes back to the same good design goes unnoticed. What poorly designed kite sticks out like a sore thumb. It looks all fucking janky and just like nothing good about it.
Well, to Spence's point there, I mean, I think one thing that you will notice on knockoffs or cheap kites is sails won't be clean and tight. You'll have puckers and things like that, as to where a well-designed kite, a well-thought-out kite, you're going to have a nice clean sail that doesn't have those puckers, that kind of bit.
Yeah, Paul is going to love that I shared in the chat section his favorite little story that we have going on in our house. This is a single line indoor glider, so it's not quite sport kite, but Paul and Hunter designed and created the Skate, which is an absolutely beautiful glider, and it cost a pretty penny. And then along comes Alexa King with her trash bag Delta that costs $1 to make, and it flies just as well. Paul is chasing a heron from our pond, so he'll be back in a second, but hopefully he can fill you in a little bit on that. So it wasn't the quality of materials used, because definitely in the skate, the quality of materials is technically a lot better. It was Icarex or some version of ripstop nylon and carbon fiber and all this beautiful stuff. Whereas the trash bag Delta is a trash bag and tape and a bamboo skewer. But the design is just so foolproof that it works for everyone that's building it and flying it. And of course, he had to run away as I brought that one up. But I'll bug him about that one later. I'll open it back up for someone else. All right. As a consumer, so we know we're kind of looking for quality or something that feels like it's going to be a good flying kite. It's kind of hard to define. Are there any other elements that you might look for in a sport kite, be it dual line or quad line? Is there something particular to you that you look for? Like it's very important that it can do slackline tricks or the new slackline tricks.
Do they make it in red and black?
Yes. Is it in red and black? Waddy's colors are red and black with a white sometimes. But I'll open it up for anyone that wants to comment.
Can I jump on this bandwagon? So this is me like totally taking back an impression of a kite that I didn't understand a couple years ago. And man, am I glad I understand it now. So when I'm looking for a kite, I'm looking for something. I mean, because like we're flying dual line, right? Like when I'm flying dual line, I want it to turn my brain on. I don't want to go fly a kite to decompress and turn my brain off. Like I want to, have a kite that's going to make me reevaluate my hand of cards and figure out in this wind range, like what can I do when I'm watching a video and I'm in the market for it. I want to see very distinctly, is this kite designed nose back? Where are the lower spreaders? How does it affect its back work? Is it spring-based or is it stiff? How does that show in the video, which is a totally different subject. But more so, I want a kite that instead of makes me think, yeah, I could fly that pretty well, makes me go, oh, crap. Like, this video cannot make me say no to this kite. And it might not be my cup of tea, if that makes any sense. And the kite that did that recently was the Supernova. When I first got it, I was like, man, I can't get this thing to fly off the ground. Like, like what's happening? And I sold it, and then I just got another one. And now that I get it, I almost can't fly anything else. But to have a kite that actually dares to be so different, like when that kite came out, its spreaders were essentially in the middle of the kite, the lower spreaders, which were very high for the time, and it's just now catching on, and it's been out for 4 years. So I think for a kite to make that statement and then also have like, the consumer react in any way, whether that's good or bad, but to have this period of time, which in this case is around 4 years, for the kite to really catch on, for people to settle in and understand it, like love it or hate it, that's quite radical and really makes a statement. 4 years to catch on. Like, so if there's a kite that's coming out that's doing that, that's what I'm looking for, because we all fear what we don't understand. And if I'm a little apprehensive, but the video sells it, I don't care what it is. Like, I'm down. Like, I want to try it.
trying to think of how to phrase my question. Where have you guys learned about sport kite design? And like, what parts did you learn first? Did you learn shape, depth? Did you learn by feel, or did you learn by technical approach? So the engineer's approach or the artist's approach?
Interestingly enough, I might have a response to that. I was trained as an engineer, so you would imagine I would have the engineer's approach. I don't think I do. I started out when I was 14. I had no money, of course, and quickly got shown competition kites, high-end kites, all that. I didn't have money for that, so I needed to come up with something of my own in quotation marks. It wasn't my own. My first own design kite was based on pictures in kite magazines of I think the Spectre Sport, not the Reactor. What came before the Reactor? You guys can help me with that. But looking at pictures of kites, and the secondary thing was flying everybody's kites, everything that I could get my hands on the beaches. When it was very popular, of course, in Europe in the mid-90s, just flying everybody's kites. And at some point, your brain subconsciously is going to connect flight characteristics with shapes. So at some point, you will know when you see a kite how it's going to fly, because you've flown 100 kites or 200 kites. And for me, that was the way to design kites. I guess that is not exactly the engineering approach.
I think he's totally right. Like when you do fly, 100 kites or more, especially like, if you're around for 20 years, you're gonna be flying a lot of kites. And not every kite, even though it's the same, flies the same based on how it could break in, or if a bridle is stretching in a strange way, or if someone steps on it, or like something. Which is kind of interesting in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say, oh, there it is. It's the edge. Paul just wrote in the chat. I think it's pretty safe to say that if an experienced flyer were to like put on a blindfold, you would very quickly be able to tell like a Trenopole kite versus a Tim Benson kite versus Paul's kites versus like 90s Christoph kites. They're very Prism is probably the most distinct out of all of them. Like, and they all do, they might be different shapes subtly, but they all are pretty similar. Like, and I'm saying this looking at my own kites too. Like, my kites have a very steep keel, kind of a lot, as if, I don't know, there's two balls right in the middle and a very thin wing. And they all kind of have the same characteristics in flight. And I think Paul's right. You do kind of resonate with something. And then there's variations on that specific theme, but it's still the same theme. Where you're waxing and waning within that theme might be more accessible to other people, which is interesting in and of itself. But I think there can be both. You can have the artist approach where you kind of mix and match to try to figure out what you like, and then you can refine the artist's approach by the engineering approach through the process of recreating and honing and stuff like that. Like, I think that balance can be kind of beautiful sometimes, and also maybe too humbling, but mostly beautiful.
Not sure if you saw that. Well said. So I'm thinking now kind of about elements of choreography or elements of flying and understanding the broken down little parts of flying. So I'm kind of using a general term of choreography to not just mean going and doing a ballet or a demo performance for others. I also mean going to the beach and flying for yourself, but flying with intention. So saying, you know what, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. So instead of just, I'm going to go out and see what happens, it's the flying with intention. So I was wondering what you guys think about elements within that framework. What are some critical elements for you when it comes to either true choreography, being a ballet that you're doing a demo, or choreography for yourself and flying with intention?
I'd like to jump in on this one real quick while I have a moment. My kid's in the can. For me, one of the things that really motivates me and always catches my eye is vocabulary. A depth of vocabulary where you're basically you can kind of chapter out the different types of things that are done and the different energies and the different places in the window. In addition to that, the tempo, sort of a cadence that takes you through it almost musically, with or without music, in the actual movement itself. But vocabulary is a key for me. And from a performance standpoint, I'm a big fan of content per 30 seconds. So in a lot of flying, I see, like, we go over here, we do something really cool, and then we basically take a trip over to somewhere else, and then we do something really cool over there. But there's a lot of wasted kind of space. A lot of times, not necessarily wasted, it all depends on the individual's expression. But I'm a big fan of just seeing that always coming out, sort of like scat. You know, someone's just going bap, 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 something's just rocking out. So that's what I really love seeing.
Boop, 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 boop. I'm just kind of randomly scrolling. Hey, Curtis, you have not only flown quite a bit yourself, you've announced for flyers, you've judged flyers. Do you have any insight on what might be critical elements for that choreography or flying for intention or flying with intention? Sorry. Oops, Curtis, your mic is still muted. You're going to have to hit the unmute button real quick. Not yet. Hit the, there you go.
Does that work? I'm new to this one. Sorry. You can hear me now. Flying for intent. Understood. I've seen some of you guys fly. Obviously, Barisi, Watts, dear Watson. Intent for who? There's the question. Big difference for judges and general public. General public. I've done demos with Ron Graziano doing incredible tricks early on, and people gave the biggest applause for when he landed and took off again. After he did Jacob's Ladders, you know, there for 5 minutes, and they don't get it. So intent, again, you know, comes with if you're doing competition or if you're doing for general public who you're trying to draw in to the sport itself. I think that's the biggest difference that's going on right now. So I am really involved on the East Coast at Newport doing shows and stuff. So I'm paying a little more attention to that. Not that I dislike competition. I love competition. But if we're trying to get people into it, I think you got to understand the difference. I think that's a big one. once you get them hooked and bring them in and take them to the park and then start doing competition, that's another level. And I'm still trying to learn. Tricks. It's taken me a long time. I started flying in the old school. I'm very heavy-handed, flying Hawaiians and stuff like that. So slackline is still a new element for me as far as flying is concerned.
Okay, this one's very near and dear to my heart. If I'm talking too much, someone like give me the X, like the Hollywood Squares X's. No, someone did it. So I was actually talking to people about this in Maumee. I don't think there's a difference flying for judges or competition or demos. Like, the biggest person that I'm competing with on a daily basis is me. And I'm a big fan of this word. I don't know if you guys can see this. I have the word intent tattooed on my arm from my mentor. And the word intention strikes me very deeply on multiple levels, including one for the future. But efficiency, it's interesting how much we overlook and how much common sense goes out the window sometimes when we fly. So like today and last weekend too, I was talking to people about half axles. And when you really you see kind of the older school approach to a half axle, where there's almost 3 inputs, give or take, for this simple motion that is essentially bouncing off a trampoline and going back the other direction. Okay, my first comment and thought process is, I don't care if this person can do a cascade or a commute or not, but if they could, what on earth is that going to look like? And are their arms going to fall off if there are, if there's 3 inputs in one half axle? And how do these simple maneuvers that are accessible for the audience, how can they be more simple and more concise, not only for the people watching, but also for the flyers' joints and also for the flyers' progression? Because if you start to pick up a bad habit in a half axle or a snap lazy and you can't string them together, it ain't the kite. I hate to break it to you. And this logic kind of goes out the window. So when I'm thinking, maybe I was talking today about the word combination, what's a synonym for combination? And people kind of go what? It's the synthesis of 2 things. And say you're stringing together 2 tricks. I'm recently trying to figure out how to do this 1 3/4 backspin to pull the spine out with the nose facing the ground a little bit, to flip the wing over and take this rotation from the backspin and turn it into a TAS without adding an extra input, which is actually, it's getting there. But when you start to combine things, this is where my head's going with intent, is you're picking things apart to make them look as seamless as possible, not only for you, but for the audience. I'm thinking wait a minute, hold on. There really isn't a setup for the next variety of tricks or precision figures or whatever. It all comes from that first hit. Orientation is everything for momentum. So, I guess some people think, intention's different to everyone. But for me, it's making something very emotionally gratifying for me because that's contagious. And that's, this sense of bliss and progress and just sheer passion is something that people pick up on. Everyone deserves to feel that, whether that's on the lines or with a person, or I don't know, with a dog that runs around circles when you're eating dinner, whatever. So I'm trying to do that, but I'm trying to make things as dynamic but as easy as possible. And I think there's a strong message in simplicity, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And I know Scott Weeder's on the chat. And I know he flies kind of for himself nowadays, but in performance for others. And I think this whole conversation about flying for intent, or flying with intention, and going out and having that, that might be something. Scott, do you have something to add there? Is there a difference for you if you know people are watching versus if you're just flying for yourself? And Scott, your mic might be muted. There you go.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm not sure who's all online, but thanks for having this. Sorry I'm late. Yeah, flying with intention. That was good. I assume that was Devin. I heard that whole bit. That was that's pretty amazing. And to me, that's as deep as you can get. And so I think if you're flying in front of people, you just want to keep it simple and make it look easy and fun. And so like competition, you want the judges to understand what you're doing. So I understand when you say whether I'm flying in front of the judges or not. So for me, it's like going back to basics and doing them for myself and just kind of practicing. And then for when you have to fly in front of people, if you will, you take your audience, you take your format, whatever you're in, and you just make it look as easy as can be. And that is simple. You keep it simple to get out of it, and nobody lost an eye. And it's just like that. So I think, I fly with a tail, and the whole idea with that is just keeping it simple and not letting the tail get me in trouble, especially with kids grabbing it and stuff. So, and it's just in its simplest form to just try to make it look easy. So that's basically what happens in a performance. If you're flying for judges, you do what you can and try to make it look simple. But yeah, your bag of tricks is important there. But I think the biggest bag of tricks is staying out of trouble and looking like it's easy. I think that's my take on it. I kind of jumped in the middle of this, but that's what I got.
Would anyone else care to comment? I'm going to leave the mic open for anyone else to hop in. And yeah.
Yeah, I think, being a flyer that just got into the demo side of things, not that I'll compete or even if there are any, but on the demo side, my thought process was, one, how do I keep the kite in the air? And two, how do I not hurt myself or anybody else? So I had some pretty simple goals on that side of things. But the flying for myself portion is, Devin said it in a very roundabout way. If you know Devin is very much about learning and progressing. And yes, I did vent the spur on a fence post. Thank you. But I think the biggest part for me when I fly for myself is learning. How can I learn, and back to a word that Spence said earlier, how can I learn to do the tricks I know already cleaner? How can I make them more smooth? Or how can I progress and learn new combinations of tricks or new tricks that I don't know? How can I get new feelings of the kite? Devin has now cursed me with the feeling to fly in light wind, which I absolutely hate light wind. So learning to feel the kite and how the wind reacts with it and how my giantly heavy-handed inputs don't work on anything that Devin designs, and just how we go about it that way. But for me, learning is a huge part of it in all aspects.
I do think that's a bit of a thing that reminds me of when I think about, do I fly differently in competition or in demos versus when I fly by myself? And I definitely do, like significantly so. In that when I'm by myself, I'm working on things, I'm doing stuff that I don't have high confidence in. Lately that's been working on task machines. I'm at like 50 to 90% success rate on those, depending on the kite that I'm flying. I'm not going to do them in demos unless I'm on the kite where it's like at the 90%, but I'll be doing them constantly when I'm by myself. So is different, unless it's like I'm rocking the music or something by myself. I guess that's a little different, but even then I'll still throw in more risks. So I'm just like, I want to do the cool stuff, and if it messes up along the way, then oh well, no one's watching, no one, like, it's fine. And if it works, then like I can feel really good about myself. But in a demo, yeah, the I guess the risk is or the consequence of failure is a bit higher. So I don't know. So that's a bit different. But I guess in terms of like cadence and general style, I think those are more on par. It's always sitting on a rhythm of some sort. Like a lot of times I've been able to just find video of me, like if I just set up a camera and record and stuff, I can usually take the footage of the video and like of the kite flying and put it to music, and it works even if I wasn't listening to anything. It's like it's all on a rhythm, especially with dual line with tricks and stuff, right? There's a timing to it and it's consistent. And so it leans itself to that. And yeah, so I don't know. That's always an interesting part to me, is the timing and rhythm. Yeah.
Well, on that point, you bring up a very good point that not to get away from the kites too much, but the music does make a big difference. And there's a difference, I've always thought, in my opinion, between the competition music that people seem to pick in the past has been a lot of soundtrack stuff, because it has, quote, things in it, opportunities for movement, versus if you can find something with opportunities and things in it that the crowd, the general public, not necessarily the public that understands kiting, but general public as in doing a show kind of thing, that they can relate to that music, you'll go over a hell of a lot better than something that they'll still appreciate a soundtrack, but I think you get more mileage, let's put it that way, out of something that is recognizable and is popular. Then you it's easier to make that connection, even if they don't know that what you just did was a Taz or not.
I'm going to stick my nose in here for a second. And I want to point out something that's actually a parallel. So we're talking about flying now, and earlier we were talking about designs. And Nick had verbalized it more or less in the distinction of an artist's design, where you're molding something based on shape, or you're engineering something based on design concepts. And I see the same thing with pilots. Whereas some flyers, they kind of naturally are drawn to almost emote what they're doing with the kite and how that comes across. And then you see some that it's almost more like they're writing the score to a soundtrack. So that's a big distinction. And so with me, I tend to find that in competition, I tend to construct more because I'm trying to fill those buckets for people. And nowadays, when I demo, I pretty much just let go. I've pretty much just started doing what I normally do by myself. I just throw a lot of emotion into it and a lot of content. That's about it. But that distinction, I think, was really kind of an important detail for the topic at hand.
One question I had that came to mind a couple of days ago, as I'm looking at Long Beach Island, that we're going to be doing a scaled down event, one of the few on the East Coast, and I'm looking at trying to fill some content for 2 days on our show field that we usually have a bunch of sport kite flyers. And then the question that came to me is like, how many people are still even putting choreographed routines together out there? I see a lot of short line trick flying, but I'm not seeing people out there with 100s or 120s actually putting a ballet routine together, not necessarily for show, just anything that's like a routine choreograph. Even myself, I haven't put anything together in years. I still go out there with headphones and soul fly, as we used to call it.
Like there's no motivator for it anymore, right? Like before you do that for competition, right? You got a reason. You're working on something. You're competing against other people. You're trying to show to other kite people who know what you're doing that you're better than the other ones, right? But in demo, like you don't really have much competition these days, and what competition there is pretty slim. And so, like, is it worth putting all the time in to do some complex choreography? I mean, not unless you're really into it. But yeah, so it's like the barrier to entry for just soul flying, if you will, is, you know, so much lower, and it still has, in terms of demo, like the payoff is the same. So
well, I'm a little afraid of us losing that art form, and I'll be honest, I'm not much on precision, but I appreciate what precision teaches you and stuff. But in the grand scope of things, I'm a little fearful that we're losing that performance. I don't even like calling it demos anymore. And maybe that's because I am trying to do shows and stuff, and it's harder and harder to find people that are going to be able, you know, to go out there and put a routine together. Even if they could fake it, doesn't have to be, you know, the perfect 10 score, you know, just entertaining.
Okay, I'm jumping in on this one. My inner, like, old musician / professor side is like screaming. I'm gonna elaborate on a few things. This trick flying stereotype, I don't think exists. And I'm using heavy air quotes on this. Precision and figures and different speeds, slides, orientations, etc. All of that took off. And like throwing an axle in at one point was ambitious. But if this precision side, speed control, slides, etc., and all kinds of things, it is already so vast, I like to think of this expansion on the trick world as actually this term of all-around flying. Balance. This is now evening out the scale. And I want to have both of those. Also, when it comes to music, a lot of the pop stuff that we're talking about and flying, not necessarily just pop, but things that people are relating to, a lot of it, if you really dig down into it, is created by chance. So if you look up chance music or interdeterminacy, a lot of that stuff in these genres are kind of looped, and some of them were created, even if you look at like John Cage, he was flipping coins and saying, like, based, you know, on this head, this is this passage that I'm going to put in this music. They kind of coincide if you can pick your poison the right way. But you're going back to this idea of this toolbox that everyone's talking about, like, we have to adapt to everything. And also, how exhausting is it going to be with how fast music is going in and out of style these days to have constantly shifting ballet routines every year? Like, I don't want to do that. There's a few things that I think are important that I'll have like a couple of quick go-tos that match different timbres or different kinds of articulations in different musics, depending on what I'm flying to. But I think, especially with how fast the world's moving, which I fully realize I'm saying this in the middle of a pandemic when the world has stopped, but like, it's kind of a lot. And I almost feel like the skill of being adaptable also has to be recognized. Like this whole thing is a balance that's very hard to strike. But I think the best fix is to like just get a huge freaking toolbox and like challenge yourself to, like, you know, if your toolbox is already a little too small, like throw out that toolbox, get another one so you can fit more tools in it. I don't know. These are things that have been on my mind for so long.
Awesome. Sorry about that. I'm also managing listening to my dispatcher for the Marine Search and Rescue call, which I'm supposed to be responding to, but yeah, I am not in the area. So let me silence that for a second. So this kind of goes back to the conversation we had earlier today about progression. And I'm kind of wanting to stay with elements as the topic here, but what are some elements of learning how to fly that you think are critical for everybody, no matter what, dual line or quad line? I mean, to me, the most obvious thing that stands out is how to launch and how to land. That's a critical element that everybody needs to learn, no matter what, because that improves your enjoyment of flying. That improves what you can do. All sorts of other stuff like that. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think are some other elements of flying that kind of apply to no matter what style of flying you choose to do or what kite you choose to fly.
I think I can. I have something on my mind about that one, which is I'm trying to think of the right word. It kind of tempo or sort of what the tone of the flying is and how it matches to music. The main thing that I think of is I think I was it Windless, I think, in January in Indoor Kite Festival in Long Beach, and there was this mystery ballet. And mystery ballet where they play music that you don't know, whatever. And so I did that, and it was the song that came up. I forget what it was, but it was a bit kind of show tuney and a bit silly, and it had kind of these two different voices, one of which was like very very fast, and then the other one was kind of almost opera-y, right? And I kind of just instinctively felt it in myself when it switched to the kind of opera one. I'm up on my toes and I'm like pirouetting as I'm, because it just kind of, it's like, this is what the mood is now. It's suddenly changed. But yeah, so like stuff like that, where it's like, here's the music and the music has a specific mood, and thinking about how you can fly the kite in different ways that matches it. Either you're being more snappy or flowy or whatever, and it's like being able to express those different emotions through the kite is something that I think speaks a lot, and it's nice to be able to see that. I think I see this a lot with Scott Weeder. A lot of his flying is very like, it feels like it's powerful. Like, I don't know why, I can't really like point at anything in particular, but I guess it's the music, and then the way he flies with the music. It's just like, it feels powerful. And it's not, it's not super easy to do. So that's like definitely a significant element, I think. But yeah. And there's video of it. Maybe I'll look up, I'll see if I can find the video for Devin.
I'm gonna jump in on this again. If I'm talking too much, give me the Hollywood X. Oh no. Okay, I'll mute. Okay, I'm not muting. I don't know what's happening. Okay. I was actually talking to this 9-year-old about this today. And it shows, I think, in everyone. I've been on this weird kick saying that kiting is an exploration in learning to do less. And it's something that we all have to dial back every time we pick up the lines. Like, if you think about it, when we're warming up, we're kind of like orienting ourselves to the kite. And at least for me, I always find myself either hitting it too hard or just enough to make things maybe look a little too supercharged, which isn't exactly elegant, if that makes any sense. And I kept thinking that there's an element in flying that I think is important, is actually a lack of haste. there is something to be said. Like, let's go into figure skating land here for a second. Like, if there's a figure skater that's going to throw a triple axel, say that's our 540. I really hope no one wants to see a figure skater throw a triple axel and break her ankle and like skate off. So if you're throwing a 540 and whether that orientation is wrong or you're really eager to learn it and you smack it in the flare and the wind is not efficiently flowing through the sail when that nose is coming back up to where the spine is perpendicular to the ground, the kite is not going to take off after the flat spin. The flat spin is probably not going to be as fast as the flight itself. And there's going to be this look of disjunct that generally comes from over controlling, which I think comes from getting a little too excited, which is totally relatable. But you can channel that excitement into kind of eliminating this haste and making things look a bit more like a kaleidoscope and less like a PowerPoint. To me, that was a very big turning point into noticing, like, you know, if a family's walking by and someone's doing a comet, the exit of that comet and the ability to change its speed is what holds the family's attention. If it's a comet with a slight hesitation at the end and flying off, the family's going to look away and go, this guy's freaking nuts. Like, what's happening? But the ability to eliminate that haste, manipulate the trick, not by over controlling and exiting with intent or intention, if you will, where all of this is the same speed and it's all one continuous thought. That's something that I think we could all do better at. I think that's what we all strive to do, especially beginners. Like, I'm seeing all this stuff with recovery and stuff. Like, how many times do you see a beginner just drag their nose into the ground like 50 feet as opposed to stopping for a second, you know, like turning one wing on the ground, pulling the top wing and doing a nice cartwheel. Like, there's just this element of haste that I think can stand in our way sometimes, for good or for bad.
I'll go ahead and read what Dave posted here because we've got a few folks that are on phone now, so they might not see this. I fly for me. It's a meditation, stress relieving thing. I'm about the best I think I'll ever be. In Tasmania, we don't have the competition and the skill sharing is nil, as no one else seems to want to do this. Also, good kites are hard and expensive to come by, except for the local quality, old school stuff built by Robert Brasington. Maybe I need a more nimble kite to expand my enjoyment. Any recommendations on a kite to go to the next level? Hey, Devin, where's your post?
Dave, what are you flying?
We're all eagerly awaiting. There you go. A wavelength.
Okay, Tasmania. How long have you had it? I'm assuming that A is an S. Okay. Expensive to find. In a couple months, I'm gonna steer you into the premier kites category, which I know is gonna turn some people's heads, but the stuff that they're coming out with under 200 American dollars is gonna be pretty insane. And there's actually gonna be an ultralight version, which is the first for premier. Let's see here. Tasmania, under $200. Nick, how much is your badass run?
The standard, I think, is $275.
And it's still one piece. Is it possible to get that protruded in Tasmania with Robert?
I think that might be difficult. Honestly, I'm also going to put the pitch for the Quantum 2.0 here because it does break down, and it's a capable, sport kite, dual line sport kite.
Good. I haven't flown one. There's also, I hesitate to even suggest this. I haven't seen it. The people from Freeline have this kite that looks interesting, but I almost want to say don't buy it because it's a copy of a Supernova. It does look like it has promise. It's called the Creator. But I mean, you could go secondhand. I'm trying to think of something that would probably bode well with this.
Yeah, Silver Fox 2.2 retails for like $250.
Yeah, that breaks down.
Kite.
That's the new one that Lamb redid.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that would be a good option. And it's definitely nimble.
Yeah, we here at the kite shop, we've been carrying them. I've been flying them. I actually flew it, and I've seen it do all the tricks. But although I can't do them, I know it does them.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh, the other thing, Scott, do you guys still have any cesiums from La Atelier?
Say that again.
Do you have any cesiums left?
I don't think so.
Oh. Oh.
All right. We'll look.
Yeah, Dave, be in touch with Scott and make them check all their stuff because they have some really interesting stuff from the French school. They have the foxes. I noticed you guys posted some Wahoos. If you really want to get into some double rotation.
Yeah, those are gone. Those are gone. Those were
what?
out of the vault. Oh yeah, they
just broke.
Yeah.
Good for you guys.
No. Well, they were brand new and come out of the vault, but. We've been carrying the Silver Fox in support of Lamb, and we have some fresh ones coming too, like in the next couple of weeks here. So, I think it's a great kite for somebody that like myself. I see the tricks being done, and the kite will do it. So I just got to teach my hands how to do it. So, I think, and as far as a beginner goes, man, the thing will cut straight lines for you. You get all the elements out of it. So for a commercially available kite, it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, Dave, I'll actually second what Scott's saying. Be in touch with them. And that kite is it comes with a lot of options. Am I correct on that, Scott, where you can mod some of the stuff on the bridle?
Yeah, not so much. There's a couple of things. They definitely adjustments at the nose where you can push it back. There's like an inch and a half of adjustments that you do. So, and also, the configuration of rods. So it can be a really ultralight kite, or you can just put stiffer rods in it and have it as a UL. It's not easy to exchange the rods, but for somebody that doesn't, won't be able to buy a couple, they buy a nimble one, and it handles a pretty good wind overall. So, yeah.
Dave, that sounds good. I mean, you could almost use that as your oyster, if you will, and you have a lot of different options to see what works for you. And then when you have maybe a bit more of a narrowed down, this is what's working and this is what isn't, in a bit more of a modern sense, we could probably really anyone could probably point you in a direction of and more maybe like a boutique like Benson line or something, or even continuing with the foxes that would work. I mean, that the Silver Fox seems pretty broad, and I think that's probably a big asset for you right now, if that makes any sense.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, be in touch with Scott and Teresa, and get some Laser Pro line while you're at it, because that's pretty lit.
I have a quick question for everybody. So here I am at the kite shop, and Lamb's got the Silver Fox. It's around $250, $275, something like that. For a commercially available kite of that caliper, the people that are on here, what are some of the other kites? I know, Devin, you've been really busy with that. I have a badass myself. It's one of my favorites. And so the pros and cons of all of them. So a light wind kite is what everybody seeks, because they want to fly in lighter wind. So I think you fly the kite you have, and then when you're in lighter wind, you take what the wind gives you, and that's it. So for beginners, you know, it's about a kite that will fly in a lighter wind, but also take what you need to give it. So take a beating, if you will. So 250 is, I think that's I'm asking this, is 250 around the price 300 that you can get, like, because we have the old widows, they're, you know, around 200, but you need 3 or 4 mile an hour to fly them. So it's what do you have to say about that?
Oh my God, there's a lot. There will be a lot in that category. So I was going to tell everybody to keep this to themselves, but there's no way this is going to happen, and John's going to kill me. It might be coming into fruition that I will be redoing all of the widows for Premiere, and there will be an ultralight version. It has been reframed. There's a drop nose. The tunnel has been concentrated. It has a reverse turbo bridle, no tail weight because it's balanced. An ultralight is done. They'll be using that kind of knockoff Icarex that Freeline's using. That's good, and it's less expensive. Those, I think, will probably be around the same price. It's not confirmed, but like, we have prototypes, and they've been on little videos in the corners of like the Sport Kite Lounge and stuff. The badass is frankly badass. Yeah. It's a great kite. I remember John McCracken and I were flying it, and we're like, ooh, like, we make all these noises when we're flying it. If you get a badass, buy Matrix line with it. Nick, you might have to help me with the price here. The 111, I know it's a bit slow, it's a bit floaty for some people, but like, God, that kite's class. Like, just looking at it. How much is it right now? Is it like 275? Okay, we're looking.
Sorry, my brain is not in level 1 mode. I'm very much in Fortuna mode. They run about 260.
That's a steal for a big sail like that, and it can fly low. Element of showmanship, charisma, beyond. Okay.
That's a very good point, Brian.
Yeah, do that. All yours.
This thing, I don't want to like speak up, but I guess now's the time for it.
Yeah.
There's this element that I see, and I watch it in performances. When I see it, I can say there it is, and it's this showmanship. It's a charisma. It's not a thing I have any clue how to develop, and I've been talking about it for a long time. And I've watched myself in videos, and it's like, this is a thing that I know is possible to develop a little bit of, but there is an enormous amount that's innate. It's like the beautiful people that everyone will move a mountain for simply because of their innate beauty. It's the same thing with charisma. There are some people who have this, especially in demo performances, in not so much competition where it's a precision where you have a specific routine, but just in the soul flying, there's a there it is. It's a Steve Jobs. It's a cloud around them that kicks in. That's a piece, and I wish I knew how to have that, since it is a thing I don't.
I have a thought on that, and that I think it starts at the very, very beginning, right? You enter the field. If you're on if you're in a quad line, you fly in and you land 2 points at the same time, right? You land cleanly. You land very intently. You go, I'm here, right? There's no fussing about. You're not dragging the tip. You come in, boom, done. Like, I'm not wasting time. Right? Or on dual line, same thing. Come down, hard landing, you're good to go, right? No fuss, no muss. It's like, I'm in and out, I'm a professional, right? Or even you're starting out the routine, you start on a wingtip, or you like do something like, this guy's here it means business, that kind of thing, where, it starts at the very beginning, and that sets a big tone on, on what they think when you're coming in. So I don't know. I feel like that's part of that sort of charisma and getting their attention in the first place. And I've even heard that sometimes when I'm flying on like short dual line lines or something, and I come in and start a routine on a wingtip, and I hear someone over there like, "Oh, this is gonna be good," right? I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." See it, like it's doing it right, showing them before you even start. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I think of the Shia LaBeouf choreography you do, and before the music even starts, you kind of like set the stage, and I feel the intention when you are walking out there. You're setting it up. It even if I don't know what's about to happen, it piques my interest, and it's like, something's going to happen here because a cocky little dude just walked onto the field and is throwing this kite down. Like, all right, he's kind of setting it up weird. What the heck is going on here? But that's a great little catch, right? And that's planned. Spencer very much does that planned. If you haven't seen his Shia LaBeouf routine with a dog, it's with a dog steak, right? Yeah. But I guess that's the critical element, is a level of confidence, right?
Yeah, confidence is a piece of it. But, I mean, I've watched people walk out with confidence, and they perform almost move for move what someone else does, yet it does not have that the showmanship element. And I cannot put a finger on it and say it is this. It is confidence. Confidence is a piece of it. The solid skills is a piece of it, but it's not all of it. You see it even like in back in high school and such, where there's a few of them who are just, everyone loves them. They are the popular people. They have the charisma, the something, and that's the thing I want to find. It's a voice, and it's the thing that I have struggled with for years.
I'm jumping in on this really quick. I think you just answered your own question, my dude.
Yeah, I struggle with having the confidence. So
Keep
where
going.
you're going, I'm not sure where it is.
Word started with a V.
I must have missed it.
Their voice. Like there's a sense of authenticity. Baresi just said it. Poise. Like this could be very dependent. Like I would love to sit in the audience with you and hear your thoughts when someone is and is not in their wheelhouse, because someone's wheelhouse is not someone else's, and that same person will have a wheelhouse that's different from someone else's, blah 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 blah. There is a bit of, yes, comfort, I think, through repetition and very hard work that comes with it, to the point where you can kind of fool yourself that you're finally getting rid of this imposter syndrome, right? When you're being watched by everyone, at least you've practiced it enough to get rid of it, at least for those 4 minutes, or channel it into something else, this intention, something. But I think there is this level of, there's that, and then it's mixed with, if we're talking about routines, you're probably not going to throw in something that you're really terrible at. Like this goes back to like the first bit of this, like you could as character building, but you're really selling you, like in everything that you want to make the statement of, and you find your voice sometimes through comfort, and that voice I think bleeds over into other things. I don't know if that's what you're seeing. That's what I always felt like, because I never want to fly demos, but I always I find myself never comfortable, and then you get used to it, and then you all of a sudden find yourself becoming more ambitious, which also hones these basic things that you did in your first couple competitions. I think it's just repetition and like comfort, and through that these walls start to come down. You find your voice, then it bleeds over, blah 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 blah, and then it's this like beautiful, hamster wheel of, I don't know, spinning hamsters.
So I'll jump in on that real quick. So I mean, I think everything that's been said is exactly right. I think it's confidence. I think it's the repetitive nature, knowing what you can do and what you can't do, and but it is that confidence piece. But it also is a selling bit there going on. I mean, I'm sure anyone that's on here that's done performances or competition, there's a time when something didn't go as planned, but you sold it as it did. So it's going out there with that confidence and then just selling it with that. And then, to build on that, I mean, it brought up about performance. I know, like, say, for example, Paul, he spent some time flying performances with aerial experience, being surrounded by dancers and different things. And I think he picked up on a lot of performance techniques that he then bled over, especially into his indoor routines, to just help sell that performance overall. And then, I mean, I don't think you can't mention, I mean, hey, Bressie, one of the most charismatic on the flying field, full body, everything, just sells it great. And Spence as well. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'll somewhat speak for Paul because I know he's not here. It's only after being with him for 9 or so years, I can see when he makes a mistake and when he covers it up, because he goes to great lengths to make it not look like a mistake. If he made a mistake over here, he's going to do the same exact thing over there, so you didn't see that he messed up. So it looks like it was intentional, and he's committed to it, and he did that, and you feel that confidence. And again, that's only 9 years of knowing him that I can see. I'm like, ooh, oh, I saw that, honey. And he's like, yeah, shut up. I know. But I bought into that. Every time I watch him fly, I still get kind of taken away by it and really like feel the emotion that he's giving. It's usually only when I go back and watch the videos and I'm being super critical and I can sit there and watch the video 20, 30 times over that I see that mistake. So that all comes from within. That's his intention is for you to feel what he's feeling. He makes it very obvious. This is what I'm doing, and I am confident in what I'm doing. And it's a very clear and distinct voice that resonates.
And I mean, I think just building on that as well, just remembering too that those people that you may be watching that are going out there with that charisma, that perceived charisma that you're perceiving there, remember that they may be nervous as hell and doing what they're doing, but they're putting on that confidence face because they know that's what they're supposed to do. Kind of like Spence said, you're going in there and you're going in there with a tent and you're going to lay it down right at the beginning, and then you're going to leave it up, on the field. They could be nervous as can be, but they're going to show that they're confident. Sell it.
Oh, I'm going to totally throw Paul under the bus here. I've actually seen him almost vomiting before performances, because he's that nervous. Every time he goes out and flies, he's nervous. But the moment his foot steps on the stage, he's Paul DeBacher, the kite flyer performer. He is that persona, and he's a showman. But the minutes leading up to it, yep. It happens. It still happens, and he's been flying for 20, 30 years.
I think there's a lot to be said about all of this. And also, I put it in the chat a little bit. I think it is really important that you do find, I think everybody deserves this, to find a home base in a kite. It doesn't have to be the most operative home base, because you don't know that at the time. But I think you need to have a place to check in. That could be a Prism Micron for all we care, as long as you have a home base. And even on the worst days, to have that, it's almost like a buffer. You don't have to be flying it in that demo or in that routine. But to have that place to check in is kind of comforting, and it does help kind of get rid of that imposter syndrome or these strange thoughts and nerves. And it is a bit of an enabler sometimes to like go out and be curious. And that curiosity, I think, is also contagious. Like, that's a very human emotion that's very easy to pick up on, whether that's just talking or that's flying a kite. Like you can see it. God forbid we see it in cat videos every day. They go viral. So.
Right. It's kind of like I suck at this, but I'm really good at that at least. Right. That's how I feel with dual line.
Yeah, Rhonda Brewer said in the comment of selling the sizzle and the showmanship, the charisma, something slightly.
Guessing battery died.
Well, I'll just share. As an organizer of kite festivals, I think only 3 of you on here have ever been to Lincoln City. But I stand back and I watch the crowd, and the people are so behind anybody that goes out there on the field. They are wanting you to be successful. They are behind you 1,000%, and their applause and their enthusiasm is real. And it's not from somebody going out there and warming the crowd up and getting them to cheer at a certain time. They pick and choose when they think you're doing a wonderful job. And you may have messed up and you may not have done something that you really had planned on doing, but they are behind you and they're going to cheer you on and encourage you to come back, because they're not out there doing it, but they can appreciate that you are. And I guess with that, I'm going to have to say goodnight, folks. I need to head home, but I'm really glad I hopped on. I got to listen to the fighter kite guys today, and listening to you guys chat, and there's just so much information, and I can't thank Nick enough for doing what she's done. And have fun. Love you.
Love you, Rhonda.
Now, hopefully I can get off of here without messing things up too badly. Here's the button. All right. Be good.
Yes. So that did remind me of, the anecdote that I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced at some point, either being at an event or a festival, or flying yourselves. You go out there, you have just a killer routine, you smoke it, it's amazing, and you nailed everything and it was beautiful, and the crowd applauds, they're engaged with it, right? And then a 6-year-old kid walks out there with their little unicorn kite, runs around, tumbles, falls, and the crowd really, really loves it. And they engage with it. And it's not discrediting what you've done, but there is definitely something to take away there, is that whatever happened with that kid with their little 10-cent unicorn kite flying, that was an emotion that the crowd could understand and latch onto. And I've seen that sometimes when it comes to performances, and this is not just sport kite flying. This is like interpretive dance and artwork, and all of that is when we try and get too conceptual and we try and go with these big ideas, the crowd just kind of goes, huh? Like, I recognize there was a lot of work put into doing that, but huh? So that's been something I've been really looking at in trying to understand my own flying a little bit better, is if I can go up and connect with people by doing 30 loops one way and 30 loops the other way with a tail, and they love it, and I was able to get across my emotion. And then, the next time around I go out there and I try my best at doing a trick heavy routine, but the emotion is kind of esoteric and up there. Which is the better performance? And for me, I'm going to say the 30 loops with tails in that instance is going to be the better performance, because I conveyed and connected with the crowd that I was trying to perform for. Back to mute.
Agreed. And I really think this is another thing that I'm pretty passionate about. Sorry, apparently I have a lot of feelings tonight. I think it's really important, especially right now when the sport's picking back up, for everyone, I don't care what level, to normalize mistakes. Like this whole like BS, like walk of shame, like these videos that we're like spamming everyone with on Facebook, there's a reason for it. It's not because we just like think it's funny to throw someone under the bus. Like this is something that we'd actually like, with the first one ended up in a spur video, yeah, because it was funny. But then like it turned into, there's a bunch of comments saying like, oh, like even these people do it. And it's like, yeah, probably more than you've ever done it. Like in like 20 years, like, it's like, you know, when you're teaching someone to fly and they crash and you're like, dude, it's fine. I've crashed so many more times than you. like it's funny. It's actually funny to see a kite like hit the ground so hard that you almost can feel it in your lower back. You know, we all know what that sounds like. Like it's strangely human. And I'm not saying we should do this in a demo field or land it on a fence post, but like, you know, like, I do think it's common to, I mean, maybe posting videos with a couple of rough takes or spam walk of shame videos, or because especially like if we're talking a trick performance, some things are probably going to go awry, like give or take, especially when the winds are like 30. That's normal. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or Richard DeBrey. Like if you look on YouTube or Vimeo. Exactly. John Bresci just killed it. Most of the really important ones, like the really like, whoa routines. One of my favorite is Maye, M-A-Y-E-T, flying a mask to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 2007. There's a lot of flaws in that routine, but holy crap. And you can think about it, you're like, yeah, that was pretty ballsy, but like you killed it. For us, that's relatable on a different level. For a beginner, it's relatable to see a mistake. It kind of levels the playing field a little bit. And I think that's something that we're really missing right now. Again, not at a high exposure. You know, you don't want to be lawn darting all the time. But I do think that's something that I think we could all do a better job of. This is, I guess, maybe pre-performance, but just a couple of thoughts.
Charlie,
Absolutely.
thumbs up. Me.
Go ahead,
Charlie
Scott.
Brown, nothing on me.
Also, wasn't sure if you guys heard that bus just running me over halfway through that, but we're good.
All right. We've had a handful of people that are on the chat that have been somewhat quiet. I would love to hear from you. What are you thinking about all of this? Let's see if I can scroll through. This is going somewhat alphabetical. Tim Field, I see you. Your mic is muted though, so you'd have to. Oh, he might have stepped away. Oh, there he goes.
Just taking it all in. Great to hear. Feel outclassed for sure, but a lot of good stuff. So just enjoying the weekend, being able to 10:30 at night still be able to talk about kites is awesome. So just taking it all in.
I feel ya. I have been up since 5 something, and I've been talking about kites since 7:45 this morning. So we're over 12 hours of kites. I'm excited. Let's see. Dang it. just left. Alban, are you there? Can you hear me? Of course, I start calling out people and I see a whole bunch of notices of people leaving. So I'll be nice then and not call on anyone else. There you are in the chat. Just wondering if you have any feedback, anything you would like to add to the overall conversation. Has there been anything that's stood out or anything you're thinking about? He says, I completely agree with the idea of normalizing mistakes. I think it definitely, it helps create that bridge between the people that are just coming into it and the super experienced people. It's like, oh yeah, okay, we're all kind of, at the core, we're all kite flyers. I like that. Facebook posts essentially great things, not enough the mistakes and the learnings. So I might have to post a challenge in the Sport Kite Lounge of, all right, let's see your best walk of shame touchdown dance. You got 120 feet to dance it out to the end of your line. And
fun fact, we actually tried to make a video archive of that in the lounge, but we realized we couldn't do videos in a photo album. We were actually going to try to do a weekly walk of shame submission. And like whoever's was the most devastating like won that week. Paul still wins, throwing the handles back.
All right, well, look for it because I'm going to put it in the Sport Kite Lounge. We're going to have a walk of shame touchdown dance. And no cheating and going with short lines unless you're flying indoors, John. I saw that. All right. Anyone else have something they would like to add?
Hey, Devin, when are the Spurs going to be out?
Well, Gerald has the first two. John's got sales behind him. We just sent in all the details for everything to be put up on the site. There were some unforeseen, quite drastic events that happened that delayed them. They were supposed to be done by Labor Day. But it is what it is. The new X tubes just came in from Skyshark. If anyone doesn't know, they're being redone. They are now at 31.5 inches. They're a little bit different. And the standard actually features all of them, which is kind of cool. So that was good that we were able to, redo that. They were flown today quite a bit by quite a few people. So they should be, technically they are in production with Gerald's kites being done, but like next week, basically is I think when everything's going to be on the site, hopefully. I know some people have been emailing John personally trying to like get customs going soon, like probably within 5 days tops, I would say, but don't quote me on it.
Nice.
Also, Hunter, you should talk about being so delightful and like being a staple in all of your history with kiting, because you have such a variety from like being on fantasy tour. I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but you're like my childhood idol. Like from like being like on fantasy tour and like also like being on the Echo, like you have so much. You're probably the most versed person in this room right now, like from the business, flying, being featured, like being a young staple. Like, is there anything that you have noticed? Because we've actually never talked about this, like throughout not only growing up in kiting, but also I guess like having to take on different roles. Like, have you noticed maybe a common denominator that connects with everyone over all of these fields that you've been so experienced in, or is that, I think that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Wow. No, I mean, thank you for that. I don't think I live up to all of that, but I appreciate it. I mean, what, you know, I guess, sure, I've seen it from a flyer, a demo flyer, then shop owner, boutique brand, co-creator, sewer. It, I mean, what's the common denominator there? I mean, we like to fly kites and we like to share that joy with people, whether it be through us, flying a performance that then, is, portraying whatever we're trying to show or feel with the kite to engage the crowd, hopefully, to selling a kite to someone, that's new or seems somewhat exciting about it, no matter where they are in their journey with kites, whether it be their single line kite for their kids or, their first stunt kite, or maybe their first trick kite, or excuse me, their first, kite that's capable of doing some more advanced tricks. Excited to see them progress, excited, we like seeing their progression with it, that kind of thing. I mean, I guess that'd be the common denominator.
Makes sense. So could we say that like the element in kiting that we're all talking about is like humanization and progression? Is that what it's boiling down to? Okay.
I'd say for me, it's closer to an element of, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, was like simplification and patience and being present in the moment, right? So not being in a hurry to have things happen, and not kind of blanking on my words right now. But it's very much that being and hoping that we can spread that to other people and encourage other people to experience that through a very, very simple means. To me, sport kite flying does that super easy, and that's why I love it, is because it's a mind-body connection. So I'll read this comment. John mentioned the loss of institutional knowledge over the past 10 years. Do you feel that too? And what are the issues? I started flying 2 years ago only. Well, that's a loaded question. And John, do you care to expand on that comment?
I'll take a bite out of it. First, it's all subjective, but one of the things that I've seen in kiting, and I'm going to kind of do a fork on this, is first of all, there's kind of I don't know if the term is right, a glass ceiling. There's a ceiling essentially, and so what I've seen over my 30 years involved is that there have been so many people that have come in and amassed skill. They've amassed knowledge, whether as a pilot or an organizer or a team captain or whatever it is, where they're spearheading the growth of something. And eventually, most people reach a point where not everybody's like I all I do is kites, and I've sacrificed everything else to that end because I know exactly what I want to do. So everything will always revolve around that. But everybody else has they've got mortgages, they've got traditional family households, they have so many other things that vie for their attention. And at a certain point, once these people accumulate so much knowledge, they've already won the championship 5 times. They can't subsidize or necessarily get that cycle of how to say, you can't spend 4 days a week producing all of this content or leading all these things after a while. And so they kind of burn out, or their attention is heavily divided with other people, with other responsibilities in their life. So that's one, as you hit the ceiling. It's not like you go into baseball or photography where there isn't necessarily a ceiling. There are challenges, but you can go on to become a camera store owner. You can go on to give classes to, there's a whole arena where you can become this master and actually be, I hate to use the word, but just to speak easily, to be rewarded or to get something in return in exchange for all that effort. So that's a place that we lose a lot. Let's see, there's the other fork. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so then the other one is we just kind of, how to say, we haven't really done that, and in part because of that, we haven't had a really good opportunity to pass on hand to hand, decade after decade, the generally agreed course to competency, right? So we've all generally agreed already that kiting is interpretive. So you can be an engineer, you can be artistic, you can be all of these things, but nonetheless, in order to get to the epitome of any of those paths, there are generally agreed points of competency, or there should be. It's like if you go in and take photography or baseball or kite surfing or whatever it is, there are clear courses that you take and you go from one shop to another all over the world, and they're all going to generally agree on the course of how to get to the base competency. And then once you're at that point, then you have all this adaptiveness, right? So the analogy that I've always used, or just used here in the last 3 years, is it just feels like, because we keep losing all of our experts, it's like we almost get to being like Major League Baseball. It's like, oh yeah, this year everybody knows what a diamond is, and we all know what the dugouts are for. We know that there's a third base coach, and like it has all these functions. We all play our own way, but we understand how the game works. And instead, like every 3, 5, maybe 8 years, we kind of get this little bit of backslide, and we end up having to redevelop it all over again. And we just don't have this clear course to competency. So that wasn't my original fork, and if it comes back to me, I'll try to jump back on. But that's what I've seen, and for me, it's a very emotional point, because having been one of the very few people that have just pretty much stayed in this the whole time for a long time, I've seen so many amazing people go by the wayside. Seen so many rising tides that have come and gone, and they've not been able to really stay, at least in the hearts and the muscle memory of the people that have remained, even if the people that built it aren't here anymore. That's a lot of loss over all these years. So that's what I see. And for those the newer pilots and newer, the newer minds in this room, don't take that as heavy as it sounds. Certainly not. I've been here for 30 years. This is awesome, man. And I'm still going. This is not going to stop. But these are nonetheless some of the dynamics that I've noticed in our community, and that I think a lot of us are becoming more and more aware of, and we're working to resolve. And social media has also allowed people to kind of do a lot more creatively in recent years, without having to invest so much of their time and capital, as it were. So that was a long old tangent, but I hope I kind of answered the question in part. Shoot.
I love this so much, and to hear you talk basically about your life, I think it would do everyone else well to like really take what you're saying seriously, obviously, because like you're living it. You're one of the few people that I feel like everything maybe by default would hit harder for you, because it is so much closer to you than most people that just think of this as like a hobby or like design on the side or something like that. And I've actually thought a lot about this lately, and having to teach. And I know we had a couple of phone calls a couple of weeks ago, just about a lot of things. And I don't know. So the thing that I've noticed lately, and I can only speak for the dual line world because I'm useless in the quad line world, except for like holding it up in the air and waving something around, is that, so there are these peaks, right? So like there's people that get really good and then they kind of fade off. And each one of them almost has their own little following in an essence. So like you have the Prism school or the Prism following, and Trounaple's I don't think as accessible as Mark, but like you have the people that develop that touch for those kites. And then you also have, who's the other guy that did all the tutorials? Dodd, who has a very strange touch when it comes to stuff. I don't think anyone can disagree with that, but he's also the shortest and the most concise, and thus maybe the easiest to digest. And each one of these schools has a lot to offer, but they're very, they're almost too refined, I think, to the point where I was just teaching this 9-year-old that I kept talking about. And I was talking to his dad and getting to know him a little bit. And I had found out that he wasn't a very technical thinker. And I was like, okay, Prism tutorials, not your bag. Like, no. Especially the early ones from the 90s. And Dodd actually resonated with him. I almost think the information is, I think it actually might be too much. There's not, well, too much in the respect that they're so different that if you watch one tutorial and the other, you get this clumped conclusion on how to do, I don't know, half axle, and you're like, what? Like, it's a bit overload hitting you at all different sides of the brain. And Nick, I almost wonder if we could come back and do like a generational roundtable. Sometimes there's people that have been, like John's been around for 30 years. I've been around for 24, but obviously I've been in and out. But I work alongside John Trounapple, who is a staple in this other generation, if you will. And you have Chris Goff working with Tim Benson, which is another fantastic example, if not the best example. And now there's some new stuff going on with the fulcrums, and there's different generations getting involved with that. I wonder if having all of the generations together would maybe alleviate some of this. I think I got off on more of a tangent than I wanted to. But it could be interesting. Elvin, I think what I'm seeing is a lack of knowledge that's filling in these cracks between all of these schools, which really boils down to adaptation, and really feeling out the kite in a different way. But in essence, it's not really different if it's always changing, because your kites are always changing, and so is the wind. I do feel the lack of knowledge, but in this almost extremist sense, if that makes any sense. I think the knowledge is there. It might it's just there's too many different peaks all over the place. Does that make any sense? I think John Baresi's actually did a really good job.
I like to butt in there a little bit, Devin, and
yes,
use
please.
The other it's a tiny one. It's the other half of the analogy. So I talked about like we're like perpetually almost on the edge of Major League Baseball, right? But what ends up happening is, the analogy that I use is stickball. Okay, so you got a neighborhood of kids. We're always this neighborhood of kids, and so the oldest kids in the neighborhood have the most knowledge. They kind of made up the rules of how this is going to work. You hit the ball this far, and they trade that skill. But we have this ongoing turnover. So we always have these like parts of the pieces in play. And then we lose like 3, and then we get 2 more, and it's just this ongoing thing. The other half of this is the and I'm going to sound like a jerk, okay? But I'm just going to be absolutely direct.
I'd say jerk away, but that's weird.
Right on. Right, yeah. So understand that I don't consider myself to be right in what I'm about to say, but I'm passionate in how you're going to hear it. And what that is that we are chronically a community of weekend masters. Okay, yes. And what I mean by that is that the champions, the greatest champions on this planet, this is something they do on the weekend. And not even every weekend. They've done it for 2 weekends a month for 25 years, and they're the best we have. Right. So this is that other distinction. Yes, my boy. So as long as we have this ceiling, they can only spend so much time in there. Hello, guy. here on this start. Just gonna give you a quick hello. Everybody, this is my son Luca.
0.5.
New generation. Mwah. Yeah. So so that's the other kind of hard ass approach to it, is that we have a lot of weekend masters. So when you have and they're all well intended, they're all working with the best knowledge they have, but they are not people that spent 7 days a week or 5 days a week mastering their skill and crunching that into nothingness all over the planet. Like me or not, like my style or not, I've flown in so much shit all over this planet and in so many different formats with no holds barred. Like I never back down from it. And all of that has hardened what I do into a very, very firm kind of state. No better or worse than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying, but it's hardened that diamond. And we just don't have very many people that in that diamond hardening capacity. So that's another facet. Total tangent. I apologize. Thank you.
No, that's totally true. Like it is what it is. Like, I mean, we have people winning national championships that won out of a pool of like 4 people because people aren't flying, like not that these people are good or bad. Like it's weird. Like
they're the best of what we have and what they're able to work with, but what they have, what the fodder is on the floor, so to speak, and the size of the room, as it were.
Yeah. And it's cool that room exists, but it does provide, just like anything, it does provide this strange a bit of grappling in the head, which is it is what it is. Yeah, no, you're totally right. We need to find a way. I almost wish it was just freaking summer all the time, or we all had more time. I think your point rings true. I mean, mostly right now, like everybody has more time on their hands. Most everybody has more time on their hands. Kiting's picking back up again. People are getting better. People are going, oh shit, we're really behind, or oh shit, this is a great time for me to reevaluate, or I'm coming back. Blah, 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 blah. And like everything has changed. I think within the pandemic, I could be a little ambitious here, but I think kiting's changed tenfold.
Here's a quick segue to Nick's, I believe, first workshop of the morning tomorrow, which is content creation. And this, I think, is capital right here, because you mentioned so many people have time, and indeed, not only are they getting better, but it's not like we can create more kite festivals. It's not like we're traveling more with that time, but we are definitely seeing an uptick in the amount and types of content that are being generated. So I take advantage of that, Nick. Make sure you get everybody in on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell you as someone that is still kind of helping behind the scenes on a lot of various little projects. I got my fingers in the pies of, what have you. There is a massive influx of new kite flyers, and specifically as well, or as to interest me, is sport kite flyers. I know quite a few stores and manufacturers that are having a hard time keeping kites in stock. They're literally just flying off the shelf. And then, granted, not all of those people are going to progress to a level where they may be interested in something like this, but I'm getting some of those company owners and what have you are reporting back to me that they're like, I need resources because people are knocking on my door and they're asking, how do I do this? How do I do that? And simple stuff. And the analogy I've used is we just have a whole bunch of people who got interested in running. And while we may have tutorials that show you how to talk about your stride length and how to improve your VO2 max and all this, there are people that are looking for, how do I put on my sock? And so there's a huge gap of information, and there's a huge potential opportunity of creating that bridge of these people who are just coming in and they are eager and they want to learn. And we've got all of these amazing tutorials and all this institutional knowledge here, and we've got to try and bridge it and bring that connection together. And they are looking online, and that's why, this content creator thing tomorrow, I mean, just from this conference alone, I've handled about 30 or 40 emails of people who I've got to do a podcast interview and stuff like this that have no connection to kiting, and now they want to learn about sport kite flying. So create good content, please. But that's for tomorrow. Sorry. Among the various sites, are there any that maintain a wiki? So funny you mentioned that. I believe, actually, John, I'll have to ask about Kite Life and how you guys update information these days on kitelife.com. If it's sport kite specific, I'm in the process of creating a generalized US sport kite portal that all of us could use that would have somewhat of a wiki base to it, so we can update trick information and knowledge and stuff like that. But right now it doesn't exist that I know of. John probably knows better than I do here.
I've seen two attempts at a wiki. And it just goes back to the ceiling thing again. So you have these really excitable, relatively intermediate people that have come in. They're like, yeah, dude, we'll do the wiki. And they just kind of lack the institutional depth of knowledge, as well as they just basically just hit the ceiling. They can't put in the time to maintain that. Also, because of the morphic nature of all of our information, it's kind of hard to get into a linear square concept. And what was your question about Kite Life specifically?
If you have something that kind of fits the wiki mode on Kite Life, I'm not sure what you're still updating. I know the forum's active.
I can kind of synopsis that. So Kite Life, of course, for those that are not familiar with, it's an electronic magazine from 1998. The last time we published articles was 2014. So it's free online. I think it's still the biggest, the largest archive of such articles online. We still have the Stunt Kite Quarterly magazines and Kite Lines magazines in PDF format. And then, of course, the tutorials, about, I think, 50 in all that I've got in there, but nothing as of late. So it just sort of exists as what it is. However, I think that the Kite Life Forum, with its small but very passionate community, there's a real depth of ongoing archive discussion about tricks and kites and techniques and all these different things. So it's still there, but it's not active. It's waiting to do something. I just, the community is small, and I want more hot bodies to work with.
Because tying a lot of this together, this is kind of the reason I've asked a number of other forums in Reddit, in various different groups. Like there was some Kite Life discussion, there was some on Fractured Axle, there was some on just various other groups I participate in, even some strangers I've met. No one seems to have a handle on how do I progress, which gets back to the progression theme. From the how do I choose my first kite? Why would I choose a beginner kite instead of an intermediate or advanced kite? Because there's good reasons to choose a beginner kite. Why would I do these things? How do I set up my lines? And while these tutorials exist from a lot of different sources, there's no grand place to start, a place to read it all in one place. I think that the AKA website redesign, if it had something like that where everybody could communicate, everyone could contribute and say, hey, I found this tutorial. So we had maybe 20 or 30 links off to here's a bunch of different ways you can set up. Here's a bunch of different ways to select kites. Here's a few things you learn from launching, landing, basic kite control, advanced kite control. How do you get into tricks? How do you get into teams? How do you get into formations and ballet? And just putting it together. That, I think, is something we're missing collectively. And a wiki may be a way to do it.
Can you condense all of that and sum it up in like 10 words? I think I might have an answer for you, or one of them.
We collectively could use, okay, you want 10 words. Step-by-step instructions for an absolute beginner to walk them through to not necessarily master level, but certainly skilled. Walk them through from beginning to skilled.
You're talking tricks, basic flight, all the above.
Tying together all the tutorials out there, the Dodd videos, the Kite Life videos, the Prism How to Fly videos, the Randy G tutorials, the tutorial after tutorial everywhere. They're all scattered about. There's nowhere that hubs.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a document with a full list edited by 10 of the world's best flyers that has been done for a month on the Sport Kites Pilots Lounge tomorrow, written by yours truly, edited by Carl Robertshaw, Chris Goff, whole 9 yards, Paul DeBacher. Like, I'll send it to you if you're not on there.
Not, but is it wiki format or is it written once and dead? That's the big thing I'm looking for. Something that's alive.
Do you just drew that on your thumb, girl? You crazy? Like, it's generally.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick. I completely understand what Brian's saying, and what I've been looking at doing is summed up in a single word, and it's pipeline.
Yes.
We need a pipeline that takes people down a path, right? That's very obvious. And however you choose to make that look is up to you, but it's very obvious how you go from here to there, right? And I am more than happy. Like this, again, this is something I've been trying to work on for a digital version. I do agree with Brian. It needs to stay alive, and it needs to be editable.
Also, it can't really be like a site. It can't be a Kite Life or a Fractured Axle or a Fortuna Found. It would be kite.org. It would be the bigger organization that would host it perpetually. While I know it, yeah, I see that look. It would need to be a big thing. It would need to be something where everybody says, go to this place to find it, as opposed to individual pieces. Oh, go to this small website, go to that small website. It needs to be something bigger.
The reason that Nick and I are sort of sharing a chuckle is as past AKA presidents both, we've kind of been down that road in terms of trying to address that organizational psychology. Not sure how to cross it. You're not wrong, Brian. I think you're absolutely right. But part of that nature, again, the AKA, remember, or any organization like it, is representative of kiting itself. So all the things we've just talked about, loss of institutional memory, loss of volunteerism, all of that, content generation, the organization is suffering the very same problem because they are manned and womaned by the same people. So they just kind of have the same difficulty keeping cohesion. But you're not wrong. I'm not poo-pooing it. Just kind of identifying where that problem has been and what the chuckle is about.
Yeah. Definitely, it's not meant as a disrespect. It's just that's something that was the same for both John and I that we had to deal with. And yeah, we've had a lot of heartfelt talks over that specific issue for years now.
This being said, I think it's really good that someone on the outside of it is also talking about it. Like,
I wouldn't say I'm really on the outside. I've been rather inside for quite a while.
Well, like not an AKA president.
Oh yeah.
You don't think you're somebody. You know what I'm saying, Brian? You're not. You're not wearing a big stupid hat like some of us are. You have a fresh set of eyes. Well, you've been here for a while. That newness, in a sense, it gives a certain clarity that we sometimes lose because of our slight jading and whatever it is over a period of time. So kudos.
Yeah,
and keep it coming.
The old Tradewinds website, they had a lot of that, and I was sad to see it go. I know some people grabbed archives of what they could, but that was a resource that a lot of people could point to and say, go here, they have a progression. Or a pipeline, as you're calling it. But yeah, I think if it were to go somewhere, either Stack or AKA, if it could be put at an institutional level, it would be very positive. Naturally, there's the, are you volunteering for the job? No.
Don't worry. And I mean this with utmost respect. I'm pretty much used to people come up with a lot of awesome ideas, and there are people in the world that are ideas people, and we need thousands of them. And there are a handful of doer people. And if I can make those connections between the thinkers and the doers, I'm freaking happy. So I try not to expect people to come up with the idea to volunteer for the work. That's my job.
Yeah, I'm one of those people situated in a key spot where I could, and the problem is I already have enough projects that I can't.
All right. So is there kind of anything else that we want to talk about? I saw Alban posted that he's been working on a quadline kite knowledge base project called quadkites.org. Free wiki solutions are rare and not modern. Modern ones are not free. This is true. Yeah. Hosting this stuff and keeping it up to date. That's the other side of it. But I'm going to leave the mic open for just a little bit longer, and then I'm probably going to sign off. I need to start processing the 13 hours or so of video from the day. So if there's anyone that wants to add something.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, sharing their stuff, and this is what it's about, Nick especially, and this late in the game for you on the day. I appreciate it completely. This is good stuff. So this is, to me, it's just reaching across and talking. So really good stuff. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
You too, darling. I'll talk to you later, Scott.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys are here today. You did a wonderful job.
Good seeing you, Mark. It's been really good to see you again after several years now.
Yeah, I've been out of the loop for 4 years, and I'm trying to get back and get out of Seattle. Seattle sucks.
Night, Hunter. All right. Are there any last comments?
What is this content thing tomorrow?
Content creators roundtable. So it's a roundtable kind of like this, but really focused on content creators that are doing kite related stuff. Like how can we do our community a better service, right? I would also love to hear what other content creators are working on, see if we can maybe help each other, or, you know, kind of like let's have it free form and see where we can go and see what we can create. And if there's some opportunities that pop up, and, you know, it's not very often I get to talk with other people who do social media and fly kites. Those two don't happen a lot.
You talk about everything from tutorials to kite porn to wikis to whatever, right?
Yeah. Whatever your flavor of content creation is. It's just like, you know, it's all kind of generalized of how are we covering and sharing the thing that we love and that we do.
Wait, what time is that? PST, I would assume.
Yes, and I believe it's 8 o'clock. Hold on.
Okay.
Pull up my calendar. Yep, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
I will do my best.
I know the feeling. I'm getting there. I'm very
I have this cute little puppy running around. You know, sometimes I wake up at 8, sometimes I don't.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I got to watch Bazer's 3-year-old open presents this morning. So
That's funny.
yep, I'm starting the day with Bazer's 3-year-old and ending it with Luca. So. All right, well, guys, I'm going to sign off for the evening. The chat will stay open until the last person leaves, so feel free to keep talking if you want to talk. But I've got to head out of here and get to processing video and sending out emails. So I'll talk to you guys all later. Bye.
Great job on everything, Nick. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye-bye.
I'm bowing out as well. I need 2 hands to swing this child around the living room. So good night, everybody.
Good night. See you later. Good
Bye,
seeing
guys.
you.
Take it easy.